A thick blanket of silver mist rolls over the highland valley, clinging to the jagged stones and the damp, emerald grass. The old shepherd emerges from his stone cottage, his heavy boots crunching softly on the dew-soaked gravel path toward the pens. Sunlight catches the brass bell hanging from his belt, casting a dull gold glimmer against his worn, dark wool coat. Hundreds of sheep raise their heads simultaneously, their rhythmic chewing pausing as the familiar scent of grain and safety approaches. A black and white border collie darts between the wooden slats of the fence, its tail wagging low in anticipation of the morning's work. The man reaches out to stroke the thick, oily wool of a ewe, her head nudging his weathered palm with blind, trusting affection. Iron latches click open as the flock flows like a slow, white river toward the high pastures under a pale morning sun. For thousands of years, these animals have never known a single day without the shadow of a human protector watching over them. Then, the next morning, the heavy wooden door of the stone cottage remains tightly shut as the sun begins its slow ascent. No blue smoke rises from the chimney, and the smell of breakfast porridge is replaced by the sterile scent of cold stone. The border collie sits patiently on the porch, its ears twitching at every gust of wind that rattles the empty window panes. Inside the pens, the sheep begin to pace, their hooves churning the soft earth into a dark, muddy slurry of confusion. They bleat toward the house, a chorus of hundreds of voices demanding the grain and water that has always appeared on schedule. As the first few hours pass, the silence of the valley becomes heavy, broken only by the creak of a swinging gate. The sheep continue to huddle in their traditional clusters, waiting for a signal that will never come from the silent house. A rusted bucket, a forgotten walking stick, an empty water trough, a frayed lead rope. A single raven lands on the roof of the shed, its black feathers contrasting sharply against the gray, weathered shingles of the roof. By the 24th hour, the grass within the immediate vicinity of the farm has been grazed down to the very roots. Thirst begins to set in as the sun bakes the empty metal troughs, leaving only a thin film of green algae at the bottom. A young ram pushes against the perimeter fence, finding a section of rotting timber that groans under his increasing, desperate weight. With a sharp crack, the wood gives way, and the flock spills out into the uncontrolled wilderness of the surrounding mountain slopes. They move without direction, stumbling over rocks and tangled briars that catch and tear at their heavy, overbred fleece. One lamb becomes hopelessly entangled in a thicket of gorse, its high-pitched cries echoing uselessly against the indifferent stone cliffs. In the deepening twilight, a pair of amber eyes reflects the fading light from the safety of a dense pine thicket. By the third day, the scent of domesticity begins to fade, replaced by the pungent odor of fear and unwashed wool. A pack of gray wolves descends from the high ridges, moving with a silent, fluid grace that the sheep cannot comprehend. The predators do not rush. They observe the chaotic movements of the leaderless flock from the cover of the long shadows. Without the shepherd's rifle or the dog's nipping heels, the sheep are nothing more than slow-moving mountains of defenseless meat. The first strike is a blur of gray fur and white teeth, targeting a straggler who wandered too far from the main group. A single, sharp cry is cut short as the pack closes in, the metallic scent of blood filling the cool mountain air. The flock explodes in a frantic, uncoordinated stampede, their heavy bodies colliding as they flee blindly into the dark woods. By the end of the first week, the relentless highland rain begins to soak into the thick, absorbent layers of their wool. Each sheep now carries dozens of extra pounds of water weight, making every step an exhausting struggle through the rising mud. Bacteria thrive in the warm, damp microclimate between their skin and the matted fleece, causing painful sores to bloom across their backs. A swarm of blowflies, a cluster of parasitic ticks, a patch of necrotic skin, a limp, waterlogged tail. The weakest members of the flock succumb to hypothermia, their bodies cooling rapidly as they collapse in the saturated peat bogs. Carcasses dot the landscape, providing an unexpected feast for the ravens and foxes that follow in the wake of the disaster. The shepherd's house is now a tomb of memories, its garden overgrown with aggressive thistles and wild, choking mountain vines. 1 month has passed, and the survivors are no longer the soft, docile creatures that once stood in the valley pens. Their bodies have leaned out, the excess fat burned away by the constant demands of travel and the search for food. They have learned to sleep in short bursts, keeping their ears swiveling toward the slightest rustle of a dry leaf or branch. A young ram stands on a jagged limestone outcropping, his gaze fixed on the valley floor where the wolves move below. He no longer waits for a gate to be opened. He calculates the jump to the next ledge with newfound, wild precision. The domestic urge to huddle in a mindless mass is slowly being replaced by a sophisticated, defensive perimeter strategy. Those with the thickest, most problematic will have died off, leaving behind those with slightly coarser, more shedding-prone coats. Nature is beginning to prune the genetic weaknesses that humans spent 10,000 years carefully cultivating for their own profit. The forest begins to reclaim the pastures, saplings of birch and rowan pushing through the soil once trampled by the shepherd's boots. A broken stone wall, a rusted iron hinge, a shattered glass pane, a rotted leather boot. By the 6th month, the seasonal shift brings the first biting frost of winter, turning the valley into a landscape of iron. The sheep have moved to the southern slopes, using their hooves to scrape away the light snow in search of hardy lichens. Their horns, once decorative, are now used to clear paths through the frozen brush and to fend off smaller, lone predators. The social hierarchy has hardened, with dominant males taking the lead during treks across the treacherous, ice-slicked mountain passes. Lambs born in this new world are smaller and far more agile, standing on trembling legs within minutes of hitting the cold earth. They do not know the smell of grain, only the sharp taste of wild herbs and the metallic tang of mountain spring water. 1 year after the shepherd's disappearance, the transformation of the flock has reached a critical, irreversible tipping point of rewilding. The wool on the survivors has matted into thick, protective dreadlocks that act as a natural armor against the thorns and wind. In some areas, the wool has begun to fall away in large clumps, revealing a coarser, hair-like undercoat suited for the wild. The sheep's faces have sharpened, their eyes holding a keen, predatory alertness that was absent when they lived behind wooden fences. They move with a rhythmic, pounding gait, their muscles rippling beneath the scarred and weathered hide of their powerful shoulders. The shepherd's cottage has finally surrendered to the elements, the roof collapsing under the weight of a heavy midwinter snowfall. Inside the ruins, a mother ewe finds shelter for her young, her breath blooming in white clouds against the cold, dark hearth. The sheep bell that once signaled the arrival of food now lies half-buried in the mud, its clapper silent and rusted. A mountain lion watches from the ridge, recognizing that the easy prey of the previous year has become a formidable challenge. The flock no longer runs in a blind panic. They form a tight circle of horns, facing outward with a grim determination. They have rediscovered the ancient instincts of their Mouflon ancestors, buried deep beneath layers of human-imposed domestication and selective breeding. The valley is no longer a farm. It is a battleground where only the most adaptable and vigilant can hope to survive. A jagged mountain peak, a frozen waterfall, a bleached animal skull, a circle of hoofprints. Evolution is not a gentle process. It is a violent stripping away of everything that does not contribute to the next breath. The sheep that remain are leaner, faster, and infinitely more dangerous than the fat, docile creatures the shepherd once knew. They climb the highest crags where the air is thin, and the predators struggle to follow their narrow, precarious footings. As the sun sets over the valley, the sheep look down on the ruins of human civilization with indifferent horizontal slotted pupils. The wind howls through the gaps in the stone walls, carrying the scent of pine, snow, and the coming, endless wild. They have survived the death of their gods, finding a new, harsher divinity in the rhythm of the seasons and the hunt. No one comes to shear them. No one comes to feed them. No one comes to save them. They do not need saving anymore, for they have become the masters of the very wilderness that once threatened to consume them. A single ram lets out a low, guttural call that resonates through the canyon, a sound that is both a warning and a triumph. The legacy of the shepherd is nothing more than a few piles of squared stone and a rusted gate swinging in the void. Beyond the valley, the world continues to change, but the sheep have already secured their place in the new, humanless order. Every step they take on the high ridges is a testament to the resilience of life when the shackles of safety are broken. Their wool is stained with the red earth of the mountains and the gray dust of the ancient, crumbling stone paths. They are the ghosts of the farm, transformed by the crucible of neglect into the kings of the high, lonely places. The moon rises over the jagged horizon, casting a silver light over the moving white shapes that haunt the mountain slopes. They move like shadows, silent and purposeful, heading toward the high alpine meadows where the first spring shoots will soon appear. Nature has taken back its own, erasing the lines on the map that the shepherd spent his entire life trying to maintain. The fences are gone. The roads are gone. The master is gone. The sheep remain, standing tall against the purple sky, their silhouettes etched forever into the rugged landscape of the new, wild earth. A weathered ram's horn. A tuft of snagged wool. A narrow mountain trail. A cold mountain stream. The sound of the wind through the grass is the only song they need to hear as they move toward the future. In the absence of the shepherd, the sheep have finally learned how to truly live for the first time in 10 millennia. Their eyes reflect the stars, bright and cold, mirroring the vastness of a world that no longer belongs to the hand of man. The mountain range stretches out before them, a playground of stone and sky that demands everything and promises nothing but freedom. They accept the bargain with every muscular stride, leaving the rotting remains of the valley farm further and further behind them. A hawk circles above. A wolf howls below. A stone tumbles down. A new day begins. There is no mourning for the past in the hearts of those who must fight to see the coming dawn. The wool that once provided warmth for humans now provides a shield against the freezing rain of the high-altitude winters. They have traded the comfort of the barn for the strength of the ridge, and the trade has made them whole again. The shepherd's name is forgotten, buried under layers of fallen leaves and the relentless growth of the wild mountain heather. Only the flock remains, a living testament to the power of evolution to reshape the softest clay into the hardest stone. They navigate the narrowest ledges with the grace of dancers, their hooves finding grip on surfaces that seem impossible to the human eye. The transformation is complete, from the pampered slave of the valley to the sovereign inhabitant of the highest peaks. They are no longer sheep in the way we understand the word, but something older, fiercer, and more beautiful. The valley is silent. The mountain is alive. The cycle is restored. A cluster of white dots moves across the face of a massive, sun-drenched granite cliff as the day reaches its peak. They stop to drink from a pool of melted snow, their reflections clear and steady in the dark, crystalline mountain water. There is no panic in their movements, only the calm, measured efficiency of creatures that know exactly where they belong. As the seasons turn, their coats will thicken and thin in perfect harmony with the pulse of the changing, wild world. They will face the predators, the storms, and the droughts, and each challenge will only serve to sharpen their newfound edge. The shepherd's dream of order has been replaced by the glorious, chaotic reality of a nature that never truly sleeps. We thought we had changed them forever, but we were only ever holding back a tide that was waiting to rush in. Now that the barrier is gone, the tide has returned, washing away the traces of our vanity and our control. A fallen fence post. A rusted water pipe. A moss-covered chimney. A wild rose bush. The sheep continue their ascent, climbing higher and higher until they are lost in the swirling clouds of the summit. They are the pioneers of a world without us, the first to reclaim the heritage we tried so hard to erase. In the end, the shepherd was just a temporary guardian of a spirit that could never be truly broken or contained. The mountain belongs to the sheep, and the sheep belong to the mountain, forever joined in the dance of survival and grace. Their journey is just beginning, a long march through the centuries that will see them change even more in the years ahead. But for now, it is enough that they are here, alive and wild, under the vast and indifferent theater of the sky. The last light of the sun fades from the peaks, leaving the valley in a deep, peaceful shadow of ancient, unbothered silence. In that silence, the sound of a single, distant bleat carries on the wind, a lonely but defiant signal of life. It is the sound of a world moving on, leaving the era of man behind like a discarded skin in the tall, thick grass. Nature has taken back the valley, and in doing so, it has given the flock back its pride and its soul. They are free. They are wild. They are home. The high ridges await the coming of the next generation, born in the wind and raised on the hard, honest stone. As the stars emerge, The flock settles into the crags, their hearts beating in time with the ancient rhythm of the earth.